Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you learn all the ways to grow their firm, sharpen their skills, and have consistent increasing sales. I cover topics such as detaching from the emotional side of the sale, having paradigm shifts in the most important part of your business, which is the nucleus of your accounting firm, sales, and how to see an objection really as an asset and stop giving away your time for free for those that don't deserve it, so you can actually get paid your value and your worth and grow your top line revenue. You'll learn tips, sales strategies, as well as hear from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly the blueprint on how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is the former accountant turned two-time entrepreneur who built and scaled and sold two businesses. While helping other business owners, he realized his passion was teaching and providing tools to business owners to make them more money and have peace of mind. He currently runs the CFO Project, which is a training company that trains professionals on how to offer outsourced CFO and business advisory services. And today, both of us are going to dive into a discussion on how to use CFO advisory services to retire early and easily sell your practice for maximum value in the future. So now let's get into the show.
I'm from the CFO Project. Michelle's from the Abundant Accountant, and we have a very special show for you today. A very special masterclass called How to Use CFO Advisory Services to Retire Early and Easily Sell Your Practice for Maximum Value. Michelle, that's a big topic.
It is a big topic, but I think it's an important one because, Adam, I've heard from so many firm owners, I want to move away from compliance. I feel like AI is going to take over my work, and I believe that advisory services, and especially CFO advisory, is one of the most important things. So I just thought we would talk about, what I'm sure you've helped hundreds of firm owners with. I've helped hundreds of firm owners, and talk about specifically what we've noticed and what we've seen with working with hundreds of firm owners. Yep. And the difference between those that will be able to retire and those that, want to charge premium fees and work less so they can enjoy their best years and sell their firms in the future for a lot of money by having a valuable service like what you do. So I thought maybe you could share first, Adam, just so everyone is clear on the definition, like, what exactly is CFO advisory services?
Yeah, that's a good question. And this is a question we get a lot because there's a lot of definitions for CFO or fractional CFO, advisory or coaching services out there. In our view, a CFO advisory service should be thought of like a product instead of a service, a fractional service. And so let me explain. A traditional fractional CFO service is where you perform tasks on behalf of your client. You're literally their CFO, but just on a fractional basis, meaning they're just not paying you full time. They're paying you maybe for 10 hours worth of work or whatnot. So if you have 4 fractional clients, you have 4 part-time jobs, you're doing fractional job, different jobs for each of your fractional clients. The problem with that, there's a couple of problems with that. One is if a client has a problem and you're their CFO, they don't care that you have 3 other clients. They need you the whole week, for example. The second is it's hard to scale, which means you're in this sort of what we call the accountant's trap, where you're essentially trading time for money. It is not much different than being like a bookkeeper or a tax professional or CPA, where you're still trading time for money. It's hard to scale because you can't make more money unless you get more clients or raise your fees. But as I'm sure we'll talk about later, it's hard to raise your fees if you're providing a commoditized type service. Okay, so anyways, that's fractional CFO. We recommend that you provide what we call productized CFO services.
Okay.
Where we essentially, instead of doing CFO work on behalf of the client. We're guiding, we're advising the client on on how to have a growing and successful business. But we recommend you offer it in a productized fashion, much like toothpaste. You're selling the Colgate. They manufacture the recipe once, the formula once, and they create the formula once. They manufacture it multiple times, thousands of times a day, because it's a product. It's scalable.
Right.
That's how we need to think of CFO services. We have one process, one system that we recommend that you use to help a client have a growing, successful business. And then just repeat that same system for all your clients. You're doing the same thing for every client with one end goal, helping them have a growing and successful business. So that's how we define CFO advisors. That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's a good question. And that was a good way to set this up, because, CFO advisory services are a great way to retire early and also easily sell your practice. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But Michelle, let me ask you, how do you know, how does an accountant, a bookkeeper, or CFO know if they're charging too little for their services? And if they are charging too little, what are some of the impacts of underpricing your services that they may have not thought about that will hurt their ability to sell their practice?
Well, and I think that's a really great question. I think one of the first things you have to think about is if you're trying to get as many clients as possible, even if they're not they're not a good fit, that's probably red flag number one. I would say red flag number two, if you're undercharging for your work, or you're doing free work, and maybe you're even over delivering to prove your value, like you're doing work and not even charging a client for it.
Yeah.
Another one,
guilty of that.
Another red flag is like you're doing work and you're like, oh, I'll bill it later, and then you never bill it. So it's this uncharted territory. Another red flag is if you find yourself giving discounts and negotiating your fees just to get clients to say yes to you, or just to get them in the door. That's a big one. Another red flag is you send out a proposal or a quote and you're waiting for a response. Like you're always checking your engagement letter software, like, oh, are they going to sign it? They said they were going to look at it. They never looked at it. What's happening? Another red flag, though, too, Adam, that's a big problem, is you do all this work up front and then you don't get paid up front. Like you do work first and then bill later and hope you get paid. But then you look at your accounts receivable and you're like, why is it so high? That's a problem. Another red flag is if you spend a lot of time working in the business and you can't even plan for your future. So if you can't plan for your future, how are you going to retire? How are you going to take on CFO advisory and create this product like you said?
Yeah.
I honor most of you firm owners for working so much, but here's honestly what's going to happen if you don't shift this perspective. You start to get exhausted, or you might actually feel exhausted right now. You start to resent your business, and then you start to actually resent the clients and the work that you're doing, even though you're like, oh, I know they'd be great CFO advisory clients, or I know we're going to get into that in a second, or I know I could be doing more, but I just have to do this work done because I'm at capacity. I'm so overworked. I'm so burnt out. I go home every day exhausted. And then you get frustrated and you snap at the people you love.
Yeah.
That's happening, then you know that you have a definite pricing problem. But that's what happens when we start losing our goals and our dreams because we're too exhausted. So on the one hand, I love that you're an incredibly hard working firm owner, but on the other hand, you're doing this for so little money. And, make sure to understand that there is a price that you are paying running your firm that way. It's not just the money. You're taking a toll on your health and your family and your loved ones. And, I don't want you to be one of those firm owners. That's why I love, Adam, what you do and what you help firm owners learn how to offer in their firms. But I see it time and time again where firm owners are just working their tails off and they lose their wife, their kids, they lose the connections, and then they lose the joy for their life and their firm and their vitality. Yeah.
It's almost like, I agree with you. It's like, and I can say this because I definitely have experienced this before when I've undercharged or used or experienced some of those red flags you're talking about, is that it's almost like when we do those things and the red flags come up, it's like we're operating from a scarcity mindset. And then we're scared of the client saying no, or losing the client, or not making enough money. And so we compromise and do all these things that we think are going to help. But in the end, they end up burning us out, literally.
Literally. Yeah. I talk to firm owners every day that are burnt out. And, I don't want to be your last stop before you throw in the towel and just go get a job somewhere, because I know that you're all meant for so much more and you have the potential. It's just no one taught you how to price. No one taught you how to have a sales system and a process.
Yeah.
No one taught you that underpricing and undervaluing yourself was actually going to hurt you in the long run.
Yeah.
So that's really what we have to change for the long-term success of your firm. But I guess, Adam, what I'm really curious of, and I hear it from firm owners that we talk to that want to sell a higher value service or product, like you said, CFO advisory. How would someone be qualified? Do they have to be a CPA, an EA, a bookkeeper, an accountant? Like, what are the qualifications to offer CFO advisory services in one's firm?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something we get a lot. And the reason why we get that question a lot is because the term CFO, Chief Financial Officer, is such a big title.
Yeah.
You hear, Fortune 500 companies have CFOs. And so, other non-CFOs, especially in the accounting profession, think there's no way I could call myself a CFO. I'm not qualified to be the CFO. So we have to reframe first in our minds what a CFO advisory service is, and then we have to be able to reframe that in a business owner's mind. But first, we have to reframe in our mind what a CFO advisory service is. Earlier I said a CFO advisory service is where we're helping, we're guiding, we're advising a business owner to have a growing and successful business. Mm-hmm. So you're qualified to provide CFO advisory services once you're able to do just that, guide a business owner towards owning a growing and successful business. Mm-hmm. So how do we measure success? How do we measure a successful business? Well, there's one way to measure a successful business, and everybody listening is probably aware of this one, or should be aware of this one way. The only definition of a successful business is one that is producing positive cash flow on a regular basis. That's a successful business. And once you're able to guide a business owner to do just that, to produce positive cash flow, which is a measurable metric.
Yeah.
Once you're able to do that, then you'll be qualified to offer CFO advisory services. The word CFO, it's, I told somebody the other day, I could be the CFO, I could be the basketball coach for a 5-year-old's basketball team, and I'll call myself a basketball coach. Doesn't mean that I'm qualified to be the Atlanta Hawks basketball coach tomorrow, right?
Different levels, right?
We're at different levels, but the title's still the same. So the title CFO doesn't really mean anything. It means what you say it means. And when our target audience are small business owners, which represent 99% of all businesses, by the way. If we go to them and say, I will help you have a growing, successful business, they're going to pay attention to what you have to say. So are you qualified to be Microsoft CFO tomorrow? Probably not. But can you be qualified to be the CFO for Paul's heating and air business that's doing $950,000 a year? Absolutely, because they do totally different things. It's just the CFO is just a name. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question. We get that a lot. And I'm sure we'll talk about imposter syndrome later on, but it goes hand in hand with thinking, I can't do this.
Well, and I think that's what holds most people back. So they're like, oh, well, I'll just do this basic bookkeeping. I'm not qualified. I just started. I just got out of a job. I just started my firm. Who's going to hire me? And it really has nothing to do with that. Like you said,
totally.
I'm just curious if you can talk just a little bit, Adam, on what you teach from the technical side of being and offering CFO advisory when people come to work with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. Our North Star is helping our client have a growing, successful business as defined as positive cash flow. So cash flow is a lagging indicator. It tells you what happened in the past, right?
Right.
So we need to be able to influence that number in the future. So what are all the things that drive cash flow in a business?
Right.
Well, it's things like, leads and converting those leads and making the sale and cost of sales and all the expenses running your business and inventory levels and accounts receivable and payable levels. All those things influence cash flow.
Yeah.
And loans and debt and how much you withdraw from your business. All of that impacts cash flow. So we have to be able to understand where all the cash is moving in a business. And then our job is to help guide or suggest things that our clients can do every month to improve the needle, to move the needle on the most important things that a business can do to improve their cash flow. So, for example, I had a client one time that owned a restoration company. They if a house floods, they come in and sort of mitigate and restore the house. And so, anyways, they thought they had a sales problem, which they did, but they thought the answer to their sales problem was getting more leads. So they did a ton of advertising. They even had, no lie, they had a billboard at the local baseball stadium. They had a ton of leads coming in. Their problem wasn't leads. Their problem was they weren't converting the leads to clients, to paying clients. They ended up sending, when they got a lead that came in for somebody's house, caught on fire in the middle of the night, and the insurance company called or whatever. They would send a project manager out, not a salesperson, a project manager who is not a sales-focused person. It's like sending the worst possible person to go talk to somebody who's in the middle of this stressful event, who's trying to decide, should I go with this company to do $20,000 worth of restoration or this company? So I said, let's focus on improving the conversion rate. So they ended up hiring salespeople to go out and do this, and their conversion rate skyrocketed, which means they were able to reduce lead flow, which means they saved on marketing costs and advertising costs. They ended up stopping that billboard, all because it dramatically offset the cost of the salespeople, and the revenue went up, which was obviously one of the drivers of cash flow is revenue. But the core, the root driver of revenue was conversion rate. Yeah. But that's just one example of how we have to approach thinking about, improving some businesses, businesses' positive cash flow.
Well, and it goes the same for firm owners, because so many firm owners don't have a sales system. They actually think they need more leads. And why, they don't want to get more leads is the wrong thing to do is this exact story you just shared.
Right.
And especially if you're paying for advertising and you're not knowing how to sell, or in this case, the project managers were taking on that role, they were just burning through cash.
Totally.
So their cash flow is going to be in the negative. And what's so interesting, I had a client, and I'll share this testimonial with you. Her name's Jessica. And she did our 8-week sales mastery program. And when I met her, she was feeling exhausted and defeated. And she had taken an organic basic marketing course. Okay. She was generating leads. She actually had a lot of sales calls, and she was doing bookkeeping. But to go along with what you said with this restoration company, she was just improvising and winging her whole process with her leads, and she missed out on $30,000. Wow. So her cash flow was in the toilet. And worse than that, she wasted 4 months of her time on generating leads and having no revenue. So I think what you're sharing is so crucial. And, she now says, she's so happy she worked with me. She actually just sent me an email because she posted it in our Facebook group. And I have to read it to you because she these prices of what she's doing for cleanup are very similar to, I know, the fees that you recommend for advisory. But she had a couple weeks ago 2 paid diagnostic reviews at $500 each, where previously she was doing it for free before. And she closed a $9,000 cleanup project. And then she closed another $10,000 cleanup project with $750 a month for the ongoing services after that. And that is because she focused on conversions versus just trying to get leads, because like your client, the leads isn't the problem. Getting more leads is like, going to Vegas and putting money in a slot machine and hoping that you're going to get a return. Where when you put the salespeople in place, like the restoration company did, or you learn it for your own firm, you start to play more of a game of poker, where you have a better sales system in place. You can know the other people's cards, you can read the game, and you have strategy versus just a free-for-all, which are like slot machines. Totally. Right? Because you know what cards you have in your hand, you can read the situation, you can get a feel for what's going on. And then you can use a proven structure to follow with a simple sales process. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. The restoration company had a full 180 turnaround, because it doesn't have to be a gamble anymore. When we start,
and that was just with that particular company. There could be another client that definitely has a leads problem, but not a sales problem. Like it really depends. The point is that we as CFO advisors have to be able to look at the whole big picture and understand what's driving cash flow, and then make a plan to go from there.
Yeah. And that's what you focus on in the program. So I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Michelle, you had this phrase called optimal capacity.
Yes.
What is that, and how can firm owners, accounting or bookkeeping firm owners, use it to essentially work less?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to, optimal capacity. You can think about it for value over volume. Okay. So the more value you deliver, the less volume you need to have. Where most people, when I first meet them, I would say, Adam, every single firm owner says, Michelle, I say, what's the biggest challenge with your sales in your firm? I need more leads. When in reality, that's not the case, because you're never going to achieve financial freedom by grinding away, working with low value clients and doing a ton of work. It just is the recipe for disaster. And that's when you start even discounting your services and doing free work typically. So maximum capacity is never the optimal capacity. So just remember that. If you feel you're at maximum capacity, you are already too late on doing the whole thing wrong. What we want to do is have optimal capacity, which I've done a podcast episode just on this topic. Do you know, like when you go on an airplane, Adam, right? There's on an international flight, there's first class, business class, the premium economy, and economy, right?
Okay.
So you want to think about your firm from a point of view that your optimal capacity would be just being at, maybe premium economy. And there's all the other space for room for high value clients. Because I want to fill up my business with business class and first class type clients. If you get to maximum capacity where you've filled up and you're on like a Spirit airline plane where the whole thing is just, cheap seats, small leg room, and terrible service, then you are a maximum capacity. You're running like Spirit Airlines, where I want to be running like Emirates, where my maximum capacity is like all first class and business class. And there's like no one in economy.
And it makes your analogy make sense, because both Spirit and Emeritus have to fly the plane. If you're going to fly the plane, you might as well fly it and make more money.
Right. And they're all configured differently with the same size plane. Look at any 777 or, whatever it is. It doesn't matter the airline. Or look at JetBlue, even just in the US, right? JetBlue has 6 or 8 Mint seats. That's lay down beds. Every time I go, there's maybe only like 1 or 2 seats to buy, because they're going to maximize that, because they're making probably 10x per seat versus all the other seats. So think about your firm and how you want to fly. I want to have JetBlue's kind of picture, but instead of my Mint being 8 or 10 6 seats, I want that to be like 20 or 30. and have just a little bit in the back. And I don't even want to fill those seats. I always want to be at optimal capacity to have room for VIPs. That's how you have to think about it. Like Jessica, she's turned down so much business. When we were in class, when she was in my course, in our 8-week sales mastery course, she was meeting with people just to get practice. Because I said, just do it for practice because the right ones will come. And we need to keep space available for those right ones. And she wanted big time cleanup projects. I mean, she made $19,000 within a 2-week period, plus the firm commitment on the $750 a month.
Wow.
For the year. Oh, because she was at below optimal capacity.
Yeah. That's amazing.
When we are coming from a place of scarcity and fear, we go, oh, I need to take on everyone and everyone. Yeah. I don't know where my next paycheck's going to come from. I don't know where my next client's going to come from. So I call that chasing money. So do you want to continue to chase money, or do you want to create value over volume and always be at optimal?
Yeah, that's where you get into trouble, by taking any client that comes, regardless of the price.
Totally. Yeah, all day long. It gets you in tons of trouble. Yeah. And your bank account is suffering. Your stress is suffering. Your family's suffering. Your family's suffering. Your kids are suffering. You're miserable. You're angry. You're snapping at people. Yeah. You're grumpy pants all the time.
Yeah.
So you can either be at maximum capacity and do it that way, or you can start reconfiguring your firm like an airplane and literally draw it out and start writing seats in there and start filling the seats as if you were filling like the NBA team. I used to be in like the food business, and we worked with pro sports. They all have private planes. Same plane as all the other airlines. Like Delta has a fleet, I think 30 planes for different pro teams. Okay. They reconfigure the plane so every single seat on the plane is a first class seat.
Yeah.
Same plane, just has different amount of seats. They're running at optimal capacity because they're bringing really tall people and different sized people. But the company and the basketball team, they're paying a premium versus Delta putting in, economy seats or Spirit Airlines seats where your knees touch the seat in front of you and the tray table's half the size.
Right.
You get to choose. It's your firm.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that if you create these seats and stick to it, things will change. And that's how you can retire earlier. That's how you can create yourself pensions. That's how you can create an exit strategy to sell your firm for a high multiple in the future. Those are all possible. But we have to do it right from the beginning. And if you've done it wrong, you can make these changes.
Yeah.
It is possible to change.
That makes sense. Makes complete sense.
Yeah. So I guess, talking about Jessica and the prices that she's charged for cleanup, and, it's just the latest win and celebration that got posted in our Abundant Accountant Facebook group. How, I think you recommend a few thousand a month for CFO advisory. Can you talk a little bit about that and, how you recommend the prices that people charge for this service? Because I'm sure a lot of firm owners are like, oh my God, Michelle, how did Jessica sell a $9,000 cleanup and $10,000? By the way, she got paid up front. It is possible. You just have to have a different way on how to enroll clients and how to communicate to them. But maybe you can talk a little bit about that and how the clients agree to those kinds of fees.
Yeah. So we have to look at this from the client standpoint, from the business owner standpoint. In order to think about pricing, we can't start with what we want. We have to start with what the client, how to present this to the client and get what they want, because they're the ones paying us. The business owner is running their business because they want something that their business can provide for them, which is why they got into business in the first place. And we're all like, all of us that own businesses are similar. We all got into business for a certain reason.
Yeah.
Well, the reason is usually has something to do with control. Either we want control of our time or we want control of money. Well, these business owners, when they start their business, things are great, but then eventually, inevitably, business owners run into problems. And so the sweet spot of a business that we recommend that you work with is a business doing between $500,000 and $5 million in annual revenue. These are businesses that are already up and running. And what usually happens when a business gets to between 500 and $1 million in revenue is that the business owner is still operating with the mindset that they are running the show, they're running everything, but it's just the stage is just that much bigger. Yeah. And so they are flying blind. They're running their business like a chicken with the head cut off. They can't take a vacation for fear of their business falling apart because you're still trying to run everything. They don't really know what's going on. And to make matters worse is that they feel something is wrong in their business, but they don't know what it is, right? Because they're not financial people. Yeah. Meanwhile, all these accountants and bookkeepers who are supposed to be the people that business owners can turn to, all they care about is recording the past correctly. Most business owners would rather the financial person in their life help them have a better future more than just making sure that the past is recorded correctly. I mean, most business owners know the need for having proper taxes and bookkeeping. That's a need. But they would rather, if they had to choose, they'd rather you, the financial professional in their life who already understands their business and their numbers, to say, here's the 5 things I think you need to do in the next couple of months in order to make more money. They would love that conversation. So why don't we get paid for it? So if we go to a client and say, look, I offer a CFO advisory services where my job is to help you have a growing, successful business. And then I don't recommend you do it this way. There's an entire sales process, and I know you have one as well. But the over a series of meetings, your communication to the prospect is, I'm going to offer a service where my job is to help you not only not fail, but to make way more money, so you can have less stress and you can gain back the control that you wanted in your business. It's only $2,000 a month, or it's only $3,000 a month, or it's only $5,000 a month. We recommend you charge a flat fee per month. Give to the client the fee, but when you present it to the client, it has to be presented in a way that it's a no-brainer to say yes to. If your leg is broken and you go to the doctor and the doctor says, I can fix it right now, you're not going to say, well, how much is it going to cost? No, you're going to want them to fix it. And that's how we need to approach this. Business owners, we have to remember, their business is not a hobby for them. It's their livelihood. It has to work. And if you come to them and say $2,000 a month, it has to be presented in such a way that that's peanuts. But think about it, a business doing $1 million in annual revenue, that's paying a part-time, low-skilled laborer $24,000 or more a year. You're not even charging that sometimes, in many cases, or $40,000 a less. It's all about how you present it. $2,000 may seem like a lot to you, but it's not to a business owner making, $500 to $5 million in annual revenue. It's not a lot to them, especially when we remember that their business has to work. And you are coming with the solution to their business working, which is generating positive cash flow. It's the only solution. So why present in a way that makes it seem like this is an expense? So that's how we get a client to agree to a $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 a month CFO advisory service.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's all about perspective.
It is about perspective, and I call it the art of enrollment. So we go much deeper into how to have that conversation.
Yeah. I just touched the surface. I wouldn't even recommend talking about pricing on the first time you meet a prospect. That's the last thing you want to talk about. But you're right. There is a whole process. But the spirit of all of that is just to get the client to understand that your job, whether you call yourself a CFO, an accountant, a profit guru, it almost doesn't matter. As long as you can connect the dots that your service will help them get what they want, then they'll pay you whatever you command.
Well, and I think like you were sharing, I'm sure there's firm owners right now who are skeptical, which I would know that that's the case, especially the CPAs. You're taught to be a skeptic, but trust me, when I tell you, you can get the right systems in place, you can have the right strategies to charge more, you can happily have people pay you to solve their problems. Like, Adam said, if you got a broken knee, you got to get it fixed. But it's just, there's a couple of shifts that you really have to understand. in order to command those premium prices of
Right.
$2,000, $3,000 a month. And once you understand the right way on how to do this and you have the right system in place, it makes it a lot easier. You know, because some people tell you, well, just raise your prices and then you can't get a client. And, you know, they don't really know how to set it up properly. And that's the problem. So intuitively, you know that there's more to than just doubling your fees or prices. And otherwise, you know, you wouldn't be here listening anyway, because you probably are undercharging. So
right. It's like telling a depressed person, just don't be depressed. Like, like, what do you do with that?
Yeah. And that's what we do here at the Abundant Accountant too. You know, we help firm owners learn how to command premium prices and how people will pay you without any hesitation, be it if you're doing CFO advisory or bookkeeping. The vehicle on how you're going to fix the problem, which is that's the vehicle, right? Like the doctor's vehicle is the surgery. They don't go and tell you all the details on how they're going to do the surgery. They tell you that after they fix your knee. So the details in these conversations really doesn't matter.
Totally. 100% agree with you. Accountants, the number one, when it comes to marketing and sales, in my opinion, the number one problem with accountants is they want to talk like accountants to non-accounting people, which represents like 99.9% of people on earth. They want to talk like accountants, and then they're shocked that these people, the 99% of people on earth, don't respond in a way that they want them to.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody wants to talk accounting, so we can't talk to accountants to non-accountants. You have to talk like a human. It's like every car commercial that I've ever seen, not one of them has mentioned the type of material that the engine's made of. No, it's the car commercials are like these, you know, very good looking people driving with their dog up to this very nice house on a snowy bank. They're creating this emotion and feel because that's what gets you to buy a car, not a bunch of car engineers talking about the different specs of a car. It's all about
people buy Adam based on emotions and feelings. They don't buy based on price.
Absolutely. So Michelle, you recommend that, and this is more of a question, but I think you recommend that firm owners need a sales system before they start getting leads. Is that true? And and why?
100%. You know, kind of like what we touched on earlier, because so many firm owners that felt that focusing on getting leads was the first thing they should do ended up at Jessica's position. Pretty much every person I meet. Yeah. So what I found is that most firm owners, you know, think they need to spend money on marketing first, when really they have a sales conversion issue at the core. So if you're starting out, you're in a job, you have a firm on the side, you have to fix and create a sales system and a sales process in your firm, because without a proper way to convert the leads when you get them, you're going to be putting money in a slot machine in Vegas. End of story, you know, and you can hope to win big one day, and, you know, it's just not going to probably happen. Or you can choose to play a game like poker where you have more control, and that is having a better sales system in place. Or if you're new and don't have one, it's creating a step-by-step sales system in place in your business. You know what cards you have in your hand. You're able to read the situations. You're understanding, are people visual, auditory, kinesthetic? I teach you all these kinds of things. And you use a proven step-by-step structure to follow with the sales process in place that you create. So it doesn't have to be a gamble anymore. You don't have to stick money in a slot machine and hope for the best.
Yeah.
You know,
that's highly stressful.
You literally will be like Jessica. Instead of losing $30,000 a month and wasting 4 months on marketing, she gained 2 new clients totaling $19,000 in a 2-week period, or maybe it was 1 week. I think it was 2 though. And a $750 a month recurring client on a 12-month engagement. Yeah. So once you have the right strategy and blueprint for the sales psychology, it's really important that you understand that too. You will have a high ROI once you then go do marketing. So marketing is doing lead generation, getting people interested and listening to what you have to say. However, when you create your sales process, you're going to learn the language and understandings and feelings and emotions that people need to hear in order to even have their ears perk up like a dog. So you have to think about it when you are going to say like the word TREAT to your dog, their ears are perking up, right? So that is like marketing. But when the dog actually eats it, then that becomes the sales process because they're converting into now, taking in that TREAT. My dog's right here, so she'll probably go crazy if I start saying that. So you have to have that foundation in place before you do any marketing. I had a client yesterday actually on my group call say, Michelle, I have a question about leads. And I'm like, you're only 3 weeks in. We're not going to discuss that here. When you're 100% done with my class, then we can have a discussion about leads. Do you want to do Facebook ads, LinkedIn marketing, Google SEO, email marketing, lead magnet capture, organic Facebook marketing? There's a million different ways, and there's a lot of different companies that help you based on what you need. But first, you have to identify all of the sales elements in your firm, which is how to handle objections, how to understand your ideal client, what keeps them up at night, how to have the enrollment conversation with them, how to ask really powerful questions to understand and get to the pain. And I think that kind of segues into what I call the 3 Ps, Adam, which I think most firm owners need to clearly understand in order to create their sales process, which is number 1, the problem, number 2, your pricing, and number 3, your process. If you do not understand your client's problem, you cannot sell. If you don't know how to price, you cannot meet with clients and start selling your services. And if you don't have a process and you're winging it and shooting from the hip, then you're going to waste a lot of time and money and effort and just really get frustrated. So you have to have the 3 Ps in place before you even meet with clients.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Almost no client that I've worked with said, my problem is I'm not generating positive cash flow on a regular basis.
No, they never say that.
We know that that's what they need, but what they really want is whatever problem they're trying to solve. So yeah, 100% agree with you. Let's shift gears and talk about how an accounting firm, bookkeeping firm owner, or CFO firm owner can improve the value of their business, mm-hmm. so that either they can retire early or they can sell their business and it's worth something.
But how can they do that by leveraging CFO advisory? What would you say?
All right, so using CFO advisory services, we've established that CFO services are a high ticket item that you can make way more money in less time, but you have to do one thing. If you want to sell your business and or retire early, you have to do one thing. You have to turn, and this is not exclusive to accounting business. This is any business on earth that wants to improve its value so they can sell. You have to turn your business into a cash flow machine. Why? Because every business on earth is sold based on how much cash it's producing. Buyers of businesses are buying cash flow streams, period. They're not buying people. In other words, if your business 100% or even 30% relies on you, you don't come with the sale of the business. So therefore your valuation is going to come down.
Yep.
Buyers of businesses are buying cash flow streams that are not relying on individual people. So to leverage CFO advisory services, we first need to sell something that is scalable,
valuable,
and that's why we recommend a productized service versus a fractional. Fractional CFO services are jobs. You want to sell a service that's scalable, meaning you can train people on your team to do this. It's a system. It's scalable. Somebody, Colgate, when they manufacture toothpaste, they don't have to get highly skilled people to come and manufacture each tube of toothpaste. No, they plug it in and it's scalable. And so that's how we need to think of this. So you can have people on your team, get clients, sell the clients, get leads, sell those leads, and then provide the CFO service. All of that are systems based.
Yeah.
So that you could train other people, and then that way you can have these systems running in your business that don't necessarily rely on you, but they're still making money.
Yeah.
And then you go to a buyer and say, this is the system. This is the system that you're buying. It produces this much cash flow each month, and it doesn't require me to operate these systems. That's how you leverage CFO services.
Yeah, and I think it's also, like you said, it's important to have the firm run on autopilot, right? Because it can be scaled quickly then and easily. And it doesn't have to be with you working more hours than burning yourself out. And I think that's the beautiful thing of offering
That's right.
CFO advisory, right?
Yeah.
And
there's a book that I highly recommend anybody read if you haven't already, called The E-Myth. Have you read The E-Myth?
I have, yeah, with the woman who was the baker.
That's right. Yeah, she's a baker. She wanted to start a pie baking business, but the problem is she started a pie baking business, but she found herself being what the author calls the chief technician. You're the one making the pies, so you can't sell your business. So instead, she ended up, by the end of the book, spoiler alert, she ended up hiring a team, creating systems, hiring a team to work those systems. So that instead of being the technician, she became the entrepreneur.
Yep.
First, she became the manager of technicians. Then she became the entrepreneur of managers. But the point is the same with bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services. You cannot continue being the technician if you expect to sell your business and or retire early.
Yeah, no, and it's so true, because you have to figure out a way, and what we're talking about today, to create time and financial freedom right now. Because if you can create it now, then that's a sellable asset in the future. You
Absolutely.
don't have to wait till retirement either. You can step back, you can work part-time, you can take the cash flow out of your business and pay dividends to yourself and enjoy your friends and family in your life. Like, you can do all those things now and create a plan for selling the firm in the future all at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be my question. What do you recommend that firm owners do right now to set themselves up to sell, to prove their value and to sell their business?
I mean, come on, Adam, you don't know the answer. You have to create a sales process. You have to implement a system for the 3 Ps, which, to reiterate, is understand the client's problem. The problem's the first P, pricing's the second P, the third P is the process. Because once you do that, you can eliminate 90% of the time-wasting strategies that you probably do on a daily basis right now.
Yeah.
And, you can have the confidence that you've been lacking, because your confidence, like Jessica, will go through the roof, because you're going to understand your value. You'll know your pricing. You'll be able to step into the firm owner that you know you were meant to be.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the most powerful things, is just not winging it and not sending out proposals and quotes, because you don't have to worry if you're going to retire, because when you're ready, you'll have a system that can be easily handed off to anyone who wants to buy the firm from you in the future.
Yeah.
And that's what's so powerful about this.
Yeah. Love it. So if somebody's interested in learning more about sales training, where do they go?
So you can go to theabundantcall.com, and, as simple as this is, like in our conversation today, obviously there's a million ways to mess it up. So I always say, why try to figure out the answers when someone like me can just hand them to you? And I have helped hundreds of firm owners quickly grow and scale their firm. Some of them have sold. They've eliminated all of their accounts receivable. They're all getting paid up front, and they created the systems to turn their firm into positive cash flow and a sellable asset if that's their choice on the exit strategy. Yeah. So it's all possible. You can have the financial freedom now that you want. You can go on vacation. You don't have to be up against tax deadlines anymore. You can really implement the things that we're talking about today and put in CFO advisory as one of the products that you offer in your firm. So my team and I have set aside time to speak to some of you. You do have to own a firm, or you can be in a job, but you have to have a firm on the side, and your goal needs to be to quit your job. So if that's you, then head on over to theabundantcall.com. We'd love to speak to some of you. There is an application to fill out once you book your spot, and that just helps us get to know you a little bit before the call. And it's really for anyone who's serious. about building a scalable firm and saving for retirement, and not being cash negative, but being cash positive, like Adam, we were talking about today. So we spent about an hour together on the phone, and we'll go through like what's working in your firm, what's not, what you've tried in the past, and then also what strategies you might be missing. So theabundantcall.com is where you go.
Excellent. Yeah, and highly recommend you check that out. And if anybody is interested in learning how to be a CFO advisor,
yes,
we have a ton of tools and resources at thecfoproject.com.
Cool.
Check it out. Well, Michelle, this has been fantastic.
Yeah, this was great. I hope many firm owners can sell their firm one day soon. And, for those of you that want to chat with us, we look forward to connecting, because what Adam has is amazing, but if we can't enroll the clients, and, I also hear a lot of times, Adam, well, how do I get my current clients to do, CFO advisory when I've kind of been doing it? I just haven't been charging them. I've been doing it for free. And that's the exact thing when we're upselling to our current clients. And that's learning how to enroll our clients at premium prices and having the confidence that you just don't have right now. So we cover that as well.
Yeah, I highly recommend that you don't give away services for free. You need a system to upsell it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for this awesome conversation, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll talk very soon. Bye, everybody.